Today we're going to explore something that's rapidly evolving yet still flying under the radar for many tech enthusiasts and smartphone users. The future of open-source smartphones in 2026, specifically comparing three of the most promising open-source mobile operating systems available today: Ubuntu Touch, OS, and PostmarketOS. Smartphones powered by open-source software have long been a niche interest, attracting developers, privacy advocates, and curious tinkerers. But in 2026, this niche is becoming more mainstream as concerns over privacy, corporate control, planned obsolescence, and digital rights continue to influence people's choices. This script will take you on a deep dive into not just what these projects are and how they differ, but what their futures might look like, where they stand today, and why you might consider one over the others as the open-source smartphone ecosystem matures. Before we compare Ubuntu Touch, EOS, and PostmarketOS head-to-head, let's set the stage by talking about the concept of an open-source smartphone in 2026. Most mainstream smartphones today run proprietary operating systems such as Apple's iOS or Google's Android. While Android itself is built on open-source foundations, the versions most people use are layered with proprietary services, apps, and frameworks. Open-source smartphone systems push back against this by offering software stacks that are free to inspect, modify, and distribute. They typically remove or reduce dependency on proprietary services like Google Play services, while empowering users with greater control over privacy, data, and the software ecosystem itself. In doing so, open-source platforms often place a stronger emphasis on community development, technical transparency, and user sovereignty. In 2026, open-source smartphone platforms have seen significant strides. Improved hardware support, better performance, richer app compatibility, and broader community adoption have all helped transform open-source phones from hobbyist projects into viable alternatives for a growing audience. We're talking about real people using these phones as their daily drivers, not just developers running custom builds in labs or forums. But with these advances come questions. Which platform has the most momentum in 2026? Which offers the best balance of usability, privacy, and app availability? And crucially, which one is poised to shape the future of open-source mobile computing? Ubuntu Touch is one of the oldest entries in this space, and it's unique in both history and design philosophy. Originally developed by Canonical as the mobile version of Ubuntu Linux, Ubuntu Touch was discontinued by Canonical in 2017, but has since been adopted and maintained by the UBports community. The idea behind Ubuntu Touch was always bold: to bring a convergent Linux experience to mobile hardware, allowing devices to behave as phones, tablets, and even desktop workstations depending on how they're used. In 2026, the UBports community has further refined Ubuntu Touch to prioritize a clean, responsive, and gesture-based user interface that feels distinct from both Android and iOS, while remaining true to the Unix-like heritage of Ubuntu itself. Ubuntu Touch has a design that strives for simplicity and power. The user interface is built around swipe gestures that reveal system functions, navigation controls, and multitasking views. There's a strong focus on minimizing friction and keeping services lightweight. Unlike many Linux desktop environments repurposed for mobile, Ubuntu Touch was designed with mobility in mind from the start, giving it an edge in usability over many competitors trying to adapt desktop environments to small screens. In 2026, Ubuntu Touch's community has also managed to support a surprisingly wide range of devices. While mainstream smartphone manufacturers do not ship with Ubuntu Touch pre-installed, the project's porting efforts have enabled this software to run on dozens of popular devices, from older flagship phones to newer mid-range hardware. One of Ubuntu Touch's most significant advantages is its respect for user privacy and control. The platform avoids proprietary services, doesn't leak data to big tech companies, and gives users the option to inspect or modify system code at will. Apps for Ubuntu Touch are packaged as click packages or libertine containers for legacy Linux applications, and web apps are encouraged to fill many of the gaps where native apps may still be limited. In 2026, the app ecosystem has grown considerably, with many popular services now available through community-built ports or web-based front ends. Yet Ubuntu Touch's app support still does not match the breadth of Android or iOS, and that remains one of the platform's most frequently cited challenges. Now let's pivot to EOS, another compelling open-source platform that has taken a different path from Ubuntu Touch. EOS pronounced EOS, is a fork of the Android open source project, AOSP, with a strong emphasis on privacy and de-Googleification. Where Ubuntu Touch represents an alternative OS built from the ground up on Linux fundamentals with its own interface and app ecosystem, UOS looks and feels more like what most people expect from a smartphone experience. Familiar interfaces, app icons, notifications, and compatibility with a wide swath of Android applications. In 2026, weOS has carved out a niche among users who want an Android-like experience without being tied into Google's data ecosystem. One of the biggest selling points of EOS is its pragmatic approach. Rather than reinventing everything from scratch, it strips away proprietary Google services and replaces them with privacy-focused alternatives. Where most Android devices are tightly integrated with Google Play services, OS replaces them with micro-G or similar open implementations that aim to provide just enough compatibility to run many mainstream Android apps. The result is a balance between openness and practical usability. In 2026, this balance has helped EOS attract a broader user base than many other open-source mobile projects. With devices that feel familiar to new users, yet still respect privacy at a fundamental level. Another aspect where EOS shines is in app availability. Thanks to its Android roots, users of weOS can install many Android applications through open app stores such as the Aurora Store, F-Droid, or even de-Googlified versions of more mainstream app sources. This means that for many users, the transition from a conventional Android device to EOS is smoother than switching to a completely new platform like Ubuntu Touch or PostmarketOS. For everyday tasks like messaging, social media, navigation, and media consumption, EOS in 2026 is more likely to offer direct support or compatible alternatives without users having to rely on web apps or workarounds. Despite these advantages, EOS still grapples with some of the fundamental challenges inherent to open-source mobile platforms. Hardware support and driver availability can be uneven, depending on device manufacturers' willingness to open sources or provide documentation. Some of the deepest hardware features, like advanced camera functions or power management modules, may still require proprietary blobs that are difficult to integrate cleanly in an open-source context. Additionally, while micro-G enables many apps to function without Google Play services, full compatibility is never guaranteed, and some services may behave unpredictably or lose functionality due to the absence of proprietary APIs. Turning now to PostmarketOS, a relatively newer player when compared to Ubuntu Touch, yet incredibly ambitious in its own right. PostmarketOS is designed around the concept of bringing a true Linux distribution experience to mobile devices. Where Ubuntu Touch has its unique mobile-oriented environment and EOS is rooted in forked Android compatibility, PostmarketOS reimagines smartphones as devices that can run full Linux distributions using traditional package managers like APK or even Debian and Alpine packages. The philosophy behind PostmarketOS is that smartphones should not be single-purpose devices boxed into ephemeral hardware lifecycles. Instead, they should become true general-purpose Linux systems, offering flexibility and longevity by providing mainline Linux support on mobile hardware. In 2026, PostmarketOS has matured significantly, with a community that's expanded hardware compatibility and improved performance across many devices. Users can choose from a variety of desktop environments or mobile shells, such as Plasma Mobile, Phosh, or CXMO, giving them a freedom of choice that most smartphone ecosystems do not permit. This flexibility makes PostmarketOS especially attractive to Linux enthusiasts who want a consistent experience across devices, from laptops to tablets to phones, all powered by the same underlying system and package management. For users who are already comfortable with the Linux command line and desktop environments, PostmarketOS represents a dream scenario, a phone you can fully control, configure, and extend without leaving the Linux world. App support on PostmarketOS is both a strength and a challenge. Because it uses traditional Linux packaging, many open-source Linux applications can run natively, provided they have been adapted for mobile usage. Meanwhile, compatibility layers such as Waydroid allow users to run Android applications in a containerized environment, bridging the gap between native open-source apps and the broader Android app ecosystem. This approach gives PostmarketOS a unique advantage: the ability to tap into both traditional Linux software and Android apps. While performance and integration are not always perfect, Progress in 2026 has been steady, and community tools have improved user experience significantly compared to earlier years. However, like the other open-source projects we've discussed, PostmarketOS must contend with hardware support limitations, especially for cutting-edge devices with proprietary drivers. The project's focus on mainline Linux also means that its pace is tied to the broader upstream Linux community's progress in supporting mobile SoCs, display controllers, modem chips, and power modules. This can make adoption slower on the latest hardware compared to something like EOS, which leverages existing Android hardware support layers. Yet the long-term benefit of this approach is that devices running PostmarketOS can potentially receive updates and security patches for years beyond what manufacturers typically offer, effectively extending the usable lifespan of hardware that would otherwise be abandoned. Now that we've explored the philosophies and technical foundations of Ubuntu Touch, WeOS, and PostmarketOS, let's compare them across several key dimensions that matter to users and developers in 2026. The first dimension is user experience and ease of use. In 2026, GOS generally provides the most familiar experience for users transitioning from mainstream Android devices. Its interface, app ecosystem, and navigation paradigms feel intuitive to people who have grown accustomed to smartphone conventions in the last decade. While Ubuntu Touch offers a fresh take on mobile UI with its gesture-based approach and a design that can feel refreshing and efficient once learned, it may come with a steeper learning curve for newcomers. PostmarketOS, with its multiple environment options, offers the widest range of experiences from mobile-centric shells like Phosh to full desktop environments, which can be empowering for advanced users but overwhelming for casual ones. A second dimension is privacy and control. Here, all three platforms rank highly compared to conventional mobile operating systems, but with different emphases. Ubuntu Touch and PostmarketOS both lean heavily into the ethos of software freedom and user control, giving users visibility into the underlying system and minimizing reliance on proprietary components. WeOS focuses on pragmatic privacy, reducing tracking and data leaks, while maintaining compatibility with mainstream apps, which appeals to users who want privacy without sacrificing utility. In 2026, privacy-conscious users often choose between the philosophical purity of Ubuntu Touch or PostmarketOS and the practical privacy balance offered by YeOS. App availability and ecosystem support is the third dimension. In this area, UEOS holds a notable advantage by virtue of its Android heritage and compatibility strategies that allow users to install many Android applications. Ubuntu Touch's ecosystem has grown, but it still leans heavily on web apps and community contributions, which may not cover all popular use cases. PostmarketOS's dual-track app strategy-native Linux apps and containerized Android support via Waydroid offers intriguing potential, but the experience can vary depending on device performance and compatibility layers. As such, EOS often feels more ready for users who rely heavily on mainstream apps, while Ubuntu Touch and PostmarketOS are more compelling for users with primarily open-source or web app-based workflows. Security and updates comprise a fourth dimension. In 2026, all three platforms benefit from active communities that provide security patches and updates beyond what many manufacturers offer for proprietary phones. PostmarketOS's focus on mainline Linux support positions it favorably for long-term update prospects, as it can pull security fixes from upstream Linux distributions. Ubuntu Touch's community also maintains robust update channels, ensuring that devices can receive improvements long after official manufacturer support has ended. WeOS similarly provides ongoing updates, with an emphasis on patching vulnerabilities while maintaining compatibility with current applications. Hardware support is a fifth dimension where differences become stark. EUOS often has broader support for more recent devices out of the box because it leverages existing Android driver frameworks, while Ubuntu Touch and PostmarketOS rely more on community porting efforts and mainline support progress. In 2026, this means that for someone with a newer flagship phone, WeOS may be the easiest to get up and running with a fully functional system. Conversely, PostmarketOS may excel on older hardware where mainline Linux support is established and community interest is strong. Ubuntu Touch lands somewhere in between, with solid support for select devices that have active porting communities. Looking ahead to the future of open-source smartphones beyond 2026, several key trends are worth noting. First, the open source ecosystem is likely to continue gaining traction as privacy concerns and awareness of digital rights expand globally. Users are increasingly skeptical of walled gardens and data harvesting practices, and open source alternatives offer not just philosophical appeal but practical options that respect user autonomy. This growing interest will likely attract more developers, resources, and contributions to projects like Ubuntu Touch, EOS, and PostmarketOS, helping to accelerate improvements. Second, hardware support continues to be a critical bottleneck. Unless more manufacturers adopt open standards or release documentation and drivers for community use, open-source mobile systems will remain somewhat constrained. However, the momentum in 2026 suggests that partnerships, community reverse engineering efforts, and broader dialogue about user freedom and hardware design are pushing the needle forward. In addition, the rise of technologies like web apps, progressive web apps, and containerized application platforms reduces the barrier to entry for open-source mobile systems. Progressive web apps allow many services to run seamlessly in a browser-like environment without needing native app binaries, which helps platforms like Ubuntu Touch and PostmarketOS bridge gaps in app availability. Meanwhile, containerized environments, such as Wavedroid on PostmarketOS, expand access to Android apps without compromising the core open-source system. In conclusion, the future of open-source smartphones in 2026 is not about a single winner, but rather about a diverse ecosystem where Ubuntu Touch, EOS, and PostmarketOS each fulfill different needs and priorities. Ubuntu Touch offers a distinctive mobile experience rooted in Linux heritage and community spirit. EOS delivers a privacy-focused yet familiar smartphone journey, and PostmarketOS pushes the boundaries of what a smartphone can be by bringing a full Linux distribution to mobile hardware. Each of these projects has its strengths and challenges, and the best choice depends on what you value most: privacy, familiarity, control, or flexibility. As we look beyond 2026, these platforms collectively represent a movement toward open, user-empowering technology that challenges the dominance of closed ecosystems. If you're considering making the jump to an open-source phone, now is a great time to explore Ubuntu Touch, EOS, and PostmarketOS. Experiment with them on compatible devices and become part of a community that's shaping the future of mobile computing itself.